Disney presents a science special. Tomorrow, the Moon. Host, Walt Disney.
At Disneyland Park, the realm devoted to things of the future is called Tomorrowland. One of the popular attractions here is our simulated rocket trip around the moon. After entering the Disneyland spaceport, visitors may experience the thrills that space travelers of the future will encounter when rocket trips to the moon become a daily routine. However, scientists tell us that it'll be many years before space travel becomes a reality.
Even though we now have the theoretical knowledge to make a trip to the moon, it will be many years yet before our plans can fully materialize. However, let us imagine for a moment that the many problems have been solved and that after completing our space station, we are ready to begin our first voyage around the moon.
Ladies and gentlemen, through a worldwide network of radio and television, we are bringing you an on-the-spot account of the first expedition around the moon. Here at Space Station number 1, 1,000 miles above the Earth, the final preparations have all been made. Except for the time the rocket is on the other side of the moon, our radio and that of the station will be in constant communication with the ship during the 10-day voyage. As the moon ship stands by, the all-important pressurized spacesuit enters the rocket's airlock for the last time. During the trip, it'll be used only in the case of emergency. The captain is the last man to come aboard. He will direct the entire expedition from his position at the front of the ship. The navigator, with his specialized instruments, is responsible for plotting the unmarked path through space. The radio operator must maintain constant communication with the Earth on the space station. Finally, the rocket ship's motor and other mechanical functions will be the responsibility of the engineer. After final instrument check, the ship's crew lock themselves in position for the blastoff. Now, only minutes remain until firing time. The captain sets the automatic firing timer and reports to the space station.
RM1 to Station 1. Firing timer is engaged. We will begin power maneuver for departure in exactly 16 hours, 23 minutes, 47 seconds.
Roger, RM1, 16 hours, 23 minutes, 47 seconds, over.
Crew will secure and stand by for firing in 84 seconds. Acknowledge. Navigator, check. Radio, okay. Engineer, check.
Form 27-1 report. Over.
Engineer to captain. Motor pressure 447 psi, 3 low. Turbo pump 11,000 RPM, right on the button. Actuators steady. Guidance readings okay. Cabin pressure 0.3 psi low. Cabin temperature 72 degrees. Over.
This is Station 1 calling RM1. Our radar telescopes have charted your firing time and course. Give us a voice report for instrument error check. Over.
Well, we're on our way. Joe, how about another report?
Our firing time was 10 minutes, 0.35 seconds. Cutoff velocity, 21,888 miles per hour. Cutoff altitude, 1,765.2 miles. 1.6 low.
Okay. Now let's double check that star tracker with an optical and radar fix.
Right.
Captain, position check shows 0.7 miles below, 1.2 miles left, and 0.3 miles ahead of standard flight path. We have only a 0.03% error in azimuth reading.
Sounds good. Bill, let's transmit all your tape reports to the station.
Gentlemen, we are interrupting our program to give you the following message. Moonship RM1, which left the space station a little over 51 hours ago, reports a distance of 169,000 miles from the Earth. The ship is traveling at 9,400 miles per hour, and deviations from the intended flight path have been so small that the captain reports no corrective power maneuver has been necessary as yet. We are happy to report all the crew are in good condition.
Check the console, Joe. Try to pick it up. Bill, is your electrical system working?
Emergency condition. Repeat. Verify. Over.
Meteor hit, number 2 nitric acid tank. Pressure's dropping fast.
It's number 2, all right. Joe, put the air blowers on emergency power. Frank, get in the bottle suit and patch that hole. Don't use your motors near that leak. Try to reach it with the gripping arms. Station 1 to RM1. Station 1 to RM1. Our instruments indicate emergency condition. Verify. Repeat. Verify. Over. RM1 calling Station 1.
This is Station 1. Go ahead.
At 51 hours, 22 minutes elapsed flight time, registered hit by a small meteor. Puncture between Station 51 and 52, upper bulkhead of nitric acid tank number 2. Repairs are underway. RM1 to Station 1.
This is Station 1. Go ahead.
Meteor puncture sealed. Estimated diameter of meteor, 1/16 of an inch. No injuries, equipment okay. Estimated loss, 180 gallons of nitric acid. Proceeding on flight plan. Over and out. Station 1, this is RM1. At 110 hours, we are beginning measurements at rim of the moon for accurate position fixes. We are now picking up the unknown side of the moon. Bill, give me an altitude reading.
Okay.
Radio altimeter reads 22,886 miles from the moon's surface.
Oh, we're moving in fast. Frank, have you got anything on that star occultation reading yet?
Just a moment, I'll run it through the computer. Captain, we're approaching the moon on ellipse 29. Course indicates collision with moon at 1:20 hours, 56 minutes. Correction tape 340 must be used at 1:16 hours.
As the 116th hour approaches, the navigator must act quickly to avoid a collision with the moon. He starts the tape selector, which will automatically correct the rocket's course by firing the motors for a precise number of seconds.
RM1 to Station 1. At 116 hours, conducting power maneuver on correction tape 340. Out.
Captain, we're almost on the button. We'll pass the moon surface at 63 miles instead of 60.
Close enough. We'll make the correction on our return maneuver. Joe, set the spatial attitude control to keep us lined up with the flight path tangent. Stand by for observation schedule 17.
Station 1 to RM1. We acknowledge observation schedule 17. Checklist as follows. Green filter 93-B on electronic camera on upper astrodome. Use magnetic color tape on station 3, lower astrodome. Run 180-degree graph through contour mapper. Over.
The next few hours will constitute the most important phase of the trip. The moon is sweeping past the ship at great speed, and in the brief span of about 3 hours, all close-up observations of its unknown surface must be completed.
RM1 to Station 1. We are now seeing the Earth disappear behind the moon's rim. This will be our last radio message until you see us on the other side.
Roger, RM1. Good luck.
I see what looks like a tremendous crater ahead. Bill, what does the contour mapper indicate?
Depth of crater is beyond range of contour mapper.
We'll reach the day and night terminator in 5 minutes. Frank, arm your flares and stand by to fire when I give the signal. Okay, Frank. Fire your flares at 3-minute intervals.
Captain, I'm getting a high Geiger count of 33 degrees.
My scintillation counter indicates a high degree of radioactivity on the same bearing.
Contour mapper shows a very unusual formation at about 15 degrees southern latitude and meridian 210.
Get some flares in that area, quick. RM1 to Station 1, do you read us? Over.
Roger, RM1. We read you weak but clear. Over.
At 123 hours, we are observing the Earth emerging from behind the moon. We will leave moon shadow at 124 hours, 14 minutes. Our ETA in orbit is 241 hours, 27 minutes.
After 3 hours of total darkness, the ship breaks from the moon shadow into the glaring sunlight to continue on its 5-day return trip. The irresistible power of the Earth's gravity has now changed the rocket's direction and is pulling it with ever-increasing speed back to the space station.
Frank, start the gyro attitude control for the braking maneuver and give me a time set for firing.
Check.
At 240 hours, preparations are being made to enter the orbit of the space station. The ship's direction is reversed so that the subsequent firing will slow the rocket's speed and jettison the empty fuel tanks.
Okay for firing. Guidance tape 264 inserted. Set firing timer for 241 hours, 49 minutes, 11 seconds.
Okay. Joe, set the tank release and report.
Fuel tank set for release.
Firing timer set. Stand by for power maneuver in 3-5 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed the first successful voyage into interplanetary space. This pioneer trip around the moon will soon be followed by an expedition which will actually land on the moon's surface. Even now, construction is going forward on the atomic-powered rocket ship that will challenge the limitless depths of space and solve the mystery of the red planet Mars.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is your host, Walt Disney.
Thank you, Garco. In this exciting age when everyone seems to be talking about the future possibilities of space travel, there's much speculation on what we will discover when we visit other worlds. Will we find planets with only a low form of vegetable life? Or will they be mechanical robots controlled by super intelligent beings?
If we were to start today on an organized and well-supported space program, I believe a practical passenger rocket could be built and tested within 10 years. Of course, it would be foolish to rush headlong into building a 4-stage rocket, man it with a crew, and attempt to fire it into an orbit without first following a step-by-step research and development program. Let's illustrate this with the help of a few pictures. First, we would design and build the 4th stage, and then tow it into the air to test it as a glider. This would also allow the crews to practice. Next, low-altitude flights would be made, firing the small rocket motor in the 4th stage. This would also give the crew more and more training. Following that, the 3rd and 2nd stages would be constructed and tested very thoroughly on the ground, after which they would be joined to the passenger section so that faster and longer flights could be made up to speeds of about 12,000 miles per hour. The only thing remaining would be the building and ground testing of the huge 1st stage. Then there would be no more test flights. When all the sections are joined together, the ship and its crew will be ready for man's first flight in space. Let's look ahead a few years and see how this might be accomplished.
There it is, a small atoll of coral islands in the Pacific, where man is dedicated to just one cause, the conquest of space. Here below us, a small city has been created to house the scientists, engineers, and technicians on whose shoulders rests the tremendous responsibility for this great adventure. This is the Rocket Assembly Building, with tracks running to the launching site. Only 48 hours remain until firing time. Our spaceship moves ponderously toward the firing site. After the ship is securely anchored over the blast tunnel, the elevator spar is raised into place for the final pre-flight check and fueling. This is the blockhouse, the control center for Operation Space Flight. Here, the oscilloscopes, radar scopes, computers, and tracking devices are the brain and nervous system for the rocket. Dancing patterns of light will record every detail of the blast-off and climb into space. In the windowless blockhouse, observation is by periscope. Through a system of worldwide radar stations, electronic eyes will always be focused on the rocket as it orbits around the globe every 2 hours. The tracking radars report ready and are standing by. The optical tracking stations are poised and ready to follow the rocket in its upward flight. As 0 hour approaches, the painstaking work of the checkout crew continues. The ship and every piece of its equipment is being checked and rechecked.
Lookout, can you hear me? Will you give me that stage 2 separation signal again? Okay now, over.
Now swivel motor stage 3 to pitch right. Okay, now give me the left.
Attention all personnel. It is now X minus 2 hours. Fueling crew, take your stations. Safety area will be cleared by all personnel.
In the pits, the required quantity of fuel is preset. The pumps will deliver 1,230 tons of hydrazine and red fuming nitric acid into the tanks of the waiting rocket. It is now X minus 20 minutes.
Flight crew, report aboard rocket. Flight crew, report aboard rocket.
After years of careful preparation, testing men and materials, this is the final payoff. Now, man will bet his life against the unknown dangers of space travel. Human reactions are not precise enough. Therefore, once the launching timer is started, the entire takeoff and flight into outer space will be controlled automatically.
X minus 5 minutes. Clear the firing area. Clear the firing area.
X minus 90 seconds. X minus 30 seconds. X minus 20 seconds. X minus 15 seconds. X minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
total firing time has been 5 minutes. The ship will now coast for 51 minutes before the adaptation maneuver begins. At over 60 miles above the Earth, the crew members experience the sensation of weightlessness for the first time.
Blockhouse to XR1. Your cutoff altitude is 63.9 miles. Distance from launching pad, 705 miles. Velocity, 18,467 miles per hour. Angle of elevation, 4 minutes of arc. Plane of your ellipse of ascent incline, 66 degrees, 32 minutes, 2 seconds to plane of equator. Out.
51 minutes later and halfway around the world, the rocket is coasted to its maximum altitude of 1,075 miles. Its speed has diminished to 14,770 miles per hour. The navigator must now take a bearing on 2 fixed stars. He will line up the ship for the adaptation maneuver, which will drive it into a circular orbit around the Earth. The electronic controls will fire the rocket motor at the exact second the ship reaches the proper position. The ship and crew are now coasting freely and silently through space. Here, man is no longer earthbound. From his new vantage point of over 1,000 miles high, he sees the Earth as a vast rolling sphere, upon which the oceans and continents are reduced to simple patterns of light and dark. Great cloud formations will appear as small patches of snow. Evidence of man's existence is almost invisible. Large cities can be seen only with the aid of powerful optical equipment. Meteorologists will make studies for long-range weather forecasting. The science of astrophysics will welcome the clear views of our moon and planets, unhampered by atmospheric disturbances. Space medicine will benefit from tests conducted with new type spacesuits.
Air Force Catalytic Iceland calling XR1. We have you in radar contact at 107 miles due south this station at 29. Estimate you at Prestwick Station Delta at 37.
Tests and observations by the crew will lay the groundwork for the future construction of a space station and will add to our knowledge of many sciences.
Rocket approaching from 3 o'clock high.
At a pre-calculated time, the rocket's path will cross that of the instrument carrier, sent into space a few years before. 22 hours after takeoff, our spaceship has made 11 revolutions around the world. It is now time to make the return trip. The engineer releases the 3rd stage. It'll be left circling in space. All tests are now concluded. The navigator checks the ship's position for return firing. 1 minute to go. The automatic firing timer is set. The ship is lined up so the blast of the motor will be against its forward motion. This will slow the rocket's speed and cause it to begin its long glide back to Earth. The ship is now moving 1,000 miles per hour slower. After coasting halfway around the world, the rocket will leave the vacuum of space and sweep into the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere, where air friction will gradually reduce the rocket's speed. When the ship drops to an altitude of 50 miles, air pressure will build up on the control surfaces. For the first time in the entire flight, the captain will be able to fly the rocket as a normal plane. Air friction begins to send the skin temperature of the rocket climbing until the ship glows cherry red at 1,350 degrees. The double hull and refrigeration keep the crew from perishing. The returning rocket continues the long glide down into the lower atmosphere, its temperature gradually dropping to normal as airspeed diminishes. completed, man has taken his first great stride forward in the conquest of space. His next goal will be the exploration of the moon, then the planets and the infinite universe beyond.